Well, thank you everybody for coming. We have a motion. Is there anything anybody wants to revise or remove from the agenda? Anybody hear me?
Can you guys hear Dennis?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the agenda then?
I make motion.
Kevin made a motion, is there a second?
Those of you online.
I'll second it.
Those of you
I don't have the agenda in front of me, but I'll second it.
I'm sorry, I've been talking without my mic on. I turned it off so we didn't get this feedback.
Okay, well, motion to second to approve the agenda. Next is comments from visitors. Anybody who wants to come up and talk, we'll ask you not to exceed 5 minutes per issue. Preferably nothing unacceptable, any slander, anything like that. Is there anybody who wants to talk? I don't think so. So we'll move on to scheduled presentations. Sammy Crow.
Right. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so for middle school student council, basically it's kind of just a recap more so of what we did last year. So we had a hard time being able to get kids to come to the meetings in the evenings and stuff. We haven't started this year just since everything's kind of been put off. But last year in November, we had a dance. We usually do a fall and spring dance. So it's Halloween themed. We had about 73% of our middle school students attend the dance, which is awesome. In December, we did some stuff before break. So we had a homeroom door decorating competition. Winners of the homerooms got like treats. We did a holiday giveaway. So we did 10 different stockings and we drew 5 random 7th grade names, 5 random 8th grade names, and handed those out. They had different treats and stuff inside, so that was fun for the kids to do. And then the last day before break, our student council kids gave away candy canes to each of the 7th and 8th graders, so kind of a good giving back. In February, we did our annual Treaty for Your Sweetie fundraiser, where we sold candy bags and cards, so staff or students could purchase those and send them to somebody else or themselves. And then we always use the proceeds that we earn from that and donate it to some organization that the kids kind of choose. And this year we did the Hope Organization, so formerly the Remnant House. So we raised $108.69 that we donated last spring to them. So it's always a fun thing to do and way to give back. In March, we were supposed to have our spring dance. That was supposed to be the Friday when everything shut down. So candy and pop was already purchased, but what we did is in May, I kind of just used that stuff. I paid it with our kids, and we put a pop and candy in every one of the seniors' bags that they got during the parade. And then we did the leftover pop and candy. We just put it out for staff to do, or staff to take as part of the Teacher Appreciation Week. So kind of got put to good use anyways. So that was kind of the gist of what we did last year for our group and stuff. It was a good year.
Nothing so far.
Nothing so far. We can't start anything up for sure until at least October. But I already had one kid from last year say, "When are we starting student council?" I was like, hold on. So hopefully we get a good group of kids again this year, which I'm sure we will, and hopefully be able to do some stuff. Again, we might have to tweak things, but we'll do what we can. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. Andrea Poole, senior high.
Yeah. Hello. So I'm just gonna go back to the spring. I was very proud of our student council because despite the fact that we, all of a sudden we're not in the building, they pulled off a digital spirit week. And so via, social media, the kids have dress up days, like show us your pet day, so they post with their pets or different things. Just, I thought it was really a good way for them to utilize technology and, the social media. The kids know how to do that to, even when we're not in the building, connect and build the morale of the students. So that was fun, and there were 2 winners, and they got like a big thing of candy and their favorite snacks and different spirit wear for Aiken. So that was a positive thing. Currently, over the summer, we have enrolled 21 kids have joined the student council for this coming year. I wanted to hit the ground running, even though there isn't much we can do at this point. But we also have elected our officers. So we have Madison Beisman and Jasmine Serrano as co-presidents. Vice presidents Esme Poole and Karina Bergstaller. Tallulah Hauser is our secretary, and Caitlin Connor is our treasurer. So we have a solid group of kids, and then I'm trying to really recruit the younger, the 9th and 10th graders, so that we can just continue to build, be consistent. And the kids, like Sammy said, they're really excited for this year. So they'll be ready.
Hopefully it opens up.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions for Andrea?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea.
Uh-huh.
We have no old business listed. New business, approve the consent agenda items. I don't know if everybody looked at that, I hope so.
Can I just ask one question?
Yep.
I just wanted to clarify that the wrestling coaching pay was not a part of the consent agenda, is that correct?
I didn't see it, Cindy.
No, it's not on there.
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I'll need to abstain when that happens. I seen basketball on there, I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss something for winter.
And baseball is not on there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as I know, they're not on.
The only thing I got a question, I thought they were gonna put like new business 8A to 10A, wherever, so we knew where it was.
We did that.
We did?
Yep, if you look, it says, I actually put it down on B on the second page where it says discuss approve items. So there's the consent agenda goes down through 14.
I'm just looking at our,
Yeah.
and it says new business, there's nothing by it.
No, because new business starts with everything. If you go down a little further,
Right.
it's like scroll down, you'll come to another one where it says letter B, discuss approve items, and then it's under there.
So that's as far
What
as
if we could put it right at the start and say,
So A is consent agenda, B is where we
Yes.
have
okay,
other items.
that's gonna be regular then, B's always,
You should hear us.
Here's the consent agenda. Oh, it's back there.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
That was Joe, I believe.
Yes.
She is right there.
Oh, it's back, okay.
That was Jeremy that gave you a second.
Jeremy seconded it. Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we'll move on to B. Discuss and approve the Minnesota State High School League membership.
So, the Minnesota State High School League membership, from the information I shared, will show you that our rates are going up tremendously, and I'm like, no, I gotta get having to switch computers here threw me off. Anyway, part of it's a perfect storm of bad for the high school league. They're at a point to where they were gonna have to raise fees anyway, is my understanding. Now with the loss of revenue due to the tournaments and so on, that put them in a situation where they're in now, to where our membership fees are gonna go to that increased amount. I'm getting there.
go from 2,800 or something to over 10,000?
Yep, just over $10,000, yep.
Is that a per year
Yes. Yep.
deal?
So there is, yep, and they provided a 12-page explanation.
Yeah.
You know, with all their revenues and expenses, and right now it's in the past it had been, if I take that back, our first part of our fees from July and August to October, our annual, or part of our membership fee would be $160 just for those 4 months. And then there's a $1 per student fee of $315, and then for the different activities we're registered for, it's $2,880. So our first installment, first of 3, is $3,355. The first, and then the next group of fees, which would be due the end of November, if I'm looking at this right, would be $3,500, and then for the spring sports season or activity season would be about another $35, or in that area. Again, so yeah, our total bill is, I had the dollar more right here.
10,355.
Okay, $10,355.
If that's the right number.
Dan, is there a specific area of the budget this comes out of?
No, it'll come out of our general fund budget. We can use COVID dollars for it, but I think I shared an email with the board that our COVID dollars are getting spent more than once in some cases. So if there's money available there.
Increase in athletic fees, is that?
That's something we could discuss. I don't think we obviously probably don't want to do it right now for the fall season.
No.
But something we could look at. There was a provision in there that if they end up collecting more, they would return money back to the districts.
Yeah, sorry.
Based on what was paid in, but yeah.
They're in trouble, no doubt.
The high school league's in trouble. Yeah, but like I said, they're most likely we're talking about us having some increase in fees already prior to all this, but
I'd only be assuming, but I would assume their board of directors took a pay cut as well.
They cut $400,000 out of a $9 million budget.
What was that? I didn't hear that, sorry.
Dennis said they cut about $400,000 out of a $9 million budget.
400,000 total? That's all.
4 FETs, 4 people. It said in that explanation. I mean, we don't have a choice, but.
Real fast. And I would hope you could confirm that question directly, because it's very appropriate.
Looking at the picture here, John, the devil's advocate side, can we go along? Do we really need them? And ultimately, I'm going to say one more thing, and then I'll stop, be quiet, and listen. As much as they've done good things for us, you know what? They're not the only ones that are having financial crisis right now. Many of our taxpayers are. Our school is not getting the dollars as liquid as we would be in a normal year. So in turn, I'm not real comfortable with seeing the massive level of increase with, I'm not sure it's not really big reductions in their staffing or anything else. So I'll be quiet and listen for feedback, please.
But to John's point, I'd sure like to know what are the ramifications if we're not a member of it. What's the? It's not. I don't think it's anybody's desire. But what's the ramifications if we say no? We're not going to do it. We got all kinds of things to consider financially in our district too. So.
My understanding is, and this goes back to my AD days, in order to compete with schools who are a part of the high school league, Minnesota State High School League, you also need to be a part of the Minnesota State High School League. So we wouldn't be able to, again, this is going back a few years. But
Well, if that's the case, Dan, then we're gonna have to pay that, and otherwise, we are going to sacrifice the experience of kids in this process, which none of us want to do. And so we're gonna have to find another area that somewhere in due time here to offset increase, because I'm not about plans and programs for the kids at this point.
I think in order to take part in the state high school league tournaments at the end, you have to be a member of the state high school league.
Yes.
That's my opinion.
Good to know.
Right. Yeah, I think we're handcuffed, but we don't have to be happy about it.
No.
Well,
so we would need a motion.
so we need a motion to approve it.
I'll make a motion that we continue to pay our membership.
That was Joe.
Yep, that was Joel.
I'll second it.
That was
Noel, seconded it. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approve proposed 2020 payable 21 levy at maximum. Heather. Right, or you want to?
Yeah, no, go ahead, Heather, if you want. It's fine. Ask it. You knew where it was going.
I know.
So this is something we approve every year at this time, and at this point in time, there's a lot of things that can change with the levy. So at this point, we would just approve.
Can't hear.
Okay.
Should I go there? Maybe come up here.
Have her walk on.
I'll have her switch spots with me.
So this is something we do every year at this time. And there's a lot of things that can change with the levy between now and in December when we approve the final levy. So at this point in time, we would just approve the maximum, and then if any changes, we'll approve the actual dollar amount in December, which is when you can decide to under levy if that's something you wanted to do.
What's proposed? How much?
The proposed, it actually changed from the one that's sent out, so now it is $1,750,501.30, which is a decrease from last year of 4.63%, which is mainly due to the projected decrease in student enrollment, the ADMs.
It was like 130 or 1,300,000 last year.
It was 1,800,000 last year.
So it's a decrease.
It's a decrease.
Oh, excuse me, I thought you said.
Yep, it's a decrease.
We can't go up, we can always go down, right? Same as always.
Okay.
Yeah, so then in December, we'll approve the actual exact dollar amount.
We need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion by Kevin to approve it.
I'll second.
Cindy seconds. Any discussion?
One quick question, after the vote in November, will this possibly, or will that affect anything on this discussion?
I think
Yes.
that's up for discussion then,
Yeah.
after we know.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, all in favor? Oops.
I was just gonna say that once this election is determined, it's gonna be a priority immediately to get a handle on this budget. Because we got some news in that message from Dan earlier today too. And it's gonna have a direct impact on what we do going forward, and we're gonna have to deal with it, so. Just an observation.
Okay, taken. Other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. So now we have to set up the truth and taxation meeting. It's usually a half hour before the December board meeting. So it'll be 6:30, December 21st. Need a motion on that? Yes, need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion.
Joe made a motion, Kevin second.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, discuss and approve updated school day. This you or Dan?
You might want, principals might jump in here. Sorry. With our plan of our everyday in person, our teachers are having a difficult time preparing and getting things ready for the number of remote learners we have. When we created a plan, we're looking at.
There's some heavy feedback from somewhere.
Yeah,
no kidding.
It's the speaker.
We can't control it, but I just thought.
Shut that speaker off.
Okay, I'm gonna shut my speaker off on my end while I'm talking and see if that helps.
Okay.
So you guys will have to give me a thumbs up or a wave if you need me to stop. What we're finding out a couple weeks in is that with the number of remote learners we have, teachers are having a harder and harder time finding time and getting time to connect with the remote learners. I believe these are Friday numbers, and I know Mary gave us some more updated ones, but I'm just going to go with these. But as of Friday, we had in the high school, we had 83 full-time remote learners. In the elementary, we had 54. Those numbers jumped a little bit. Both schools had 12 kids. The Ripple side has 12 kids. High school had 12 kids who were remote learning just due to possible exposure or possible concerns with COVID. And that put an added stress and strain on our teachers to try and connect and to get the initial connections and stay connected with our students. I know we have 2 people in the high school and 1 person in the elementary who are working. But the kind of the feeling is that's more in a support role. Our teachers that actually have these kids listed in their classes as part of their class just feel like they need, and I shouldn't say they do, we feel like they need some added time to get done or to do what they need to do. A number of schools, probably about half, and it's maybe not half, but a lot of schools when they started, they built in some added time where they shortened the day, they started later, ended early, or maybe did a Wednesday, the Wednesday as a remote learning day for everybody. We didn't, because our numbers at the time I didn't think we would need it. After meeting with our teachers and then contacting some other schools today that I knew were kind of in a similar model to us, where they hadn't built in any chunk of added time. 2 of the 3 schools that I was able to get a hold of, they're approaching things the way we are. One tonight is voting on adding a remote learning day, so their kids in person would have 4 days a week and a 5th day. Everybody would be remote learning. Another school is proposing at their next board meeting to do something like what I'm proposing, and then the 3rd school I contacted wasn't sure what they were going to do yet, but we're going to be addressing it as well. A number of other schools I contacted, like I said, already had something built in at the get-go. What I'd like to, and I guess what I've been visiting with Education Minnesota this morning and some teachers throughout the day, and then Paul and Andy this afternoon, is propose in the high school, if we went back to our regular schedule where we had 8th hour was study hall and homeroom time. We took that out and added those minutes into each of the 7 class periods prior to that. If we go back to that schedule where the high school basically the 7th hour ended at 2:40 or 2:38, if we go back to that schedule and then dismiss the high school at that 2:38 time, we would move the elementary back, so they would be dismissing roughly 20 minutes or so, depending on Andy, about 20 minutes, would you say?
2:20 would be dismissal.
The elementary would dismiss at 2:20. That would give our teachers 40 minutes of additional prep time or work time, remote learning time, to address some of the concerns we're having with not being able to connect or not being able to do the workload of uploading videos or getting information ready for our remote learners. So I guess that's what I'm sharing. That's what I'd like to get board feedback on, and let you know that things are going pretty well. But our teachers are and our staff are really feeling overwhelmed already with the amount of work that having this number of remote learners is generating for them. So I'll turn the speaker back on.
How many teachers does this impact, Dan?
Okay, speaker's back on. Sorry, Joy.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
How many teachers does this impact? Respective buildings.
How many teachers? I'm sorry, we're still having. How many teachers? What
does this impact?
Oh.
Are impacted by this?
This would impact. Well, if we made a change, it would impact all our teachers. And all our teachers right now are seeing and doing more work, trying to do two things: provide instruction for in class, but match or as best we can match that for remote learning where we can. And right now, that's been the struggle.
So, wasn't this going to be the duty of the 3 halftime people?
Yeah, and what we're finding with the 3 part-time people is it's more of a support role that they're doing, and they're being able to connect and try to get things out. But we're having challenges with getting the actual lessons, the material prepared, ready, recorded, shared from the classroom teacher. So that's where the time, the added time is coming in. So we would still have the 3 teachers work and make those contacts, and but it's actually, teachers having time to even do just some actual teaching through the remote learning process every day is something that would benefit our remote learners.
Where does their prep time fit in the middle of this?
Their prep time, it fits. Everybody has a different prep time during the day, and I'm not quite sure what you're asking, but teachers do have the prep time, the 5 minutes for every 25 minutes of instruction, I believe, is the model in the contract. So that's there. It's just this to prepare for the remote learners. It is adding above and beyond. So now, in the past, we've had to prepare for their in-classroom, but now we're also providing, different models, different modes, different methods for our remote learners.
Dan, question. So can you define what the 3 instructors are doing, what their role is from, a standpoint of, are they just checking in to make sure, or if a student has a question, or, what's their role, as with the distance learners?
Yeah, and I probably have a better handle for the high school just because I'm on a spreadsheet that they share with their contact logs. In the high school, I'm seeing they're doing a little bit of everything, just checking in, saying, hey, I got a notice from your civics teacher that they haven't been able to make contact with you. What's going on? Do you need help with? So they've been providing anything from curriculum specific to the course content areas to, Canvas is still, for some kids, challenging. What do you do to submit? How do you submit? Where do you find stuff? So they're doing more of that support side of things. I think what we're looking at is providing more teacher time so teachers can do more teaching of the content area. Kind of the same thing in the elementary. I don't have as detailed log, and it's a little bit different in the elementary as well. But again, she's working with the classroom teachers and getting lists of students who maybe need a little added support or need some guidance on where to catch things, find things, or do things, turn things in. Andy and Paul, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I would say the added support is instructional too. In the elementary, it's a little different than the high school, but I've asked my teachers to reach out to Angie if they do need some support, so she could be providing increased contact or actually tutoring in some subject areas. It's kind of a work in progress, but that's the idea right now on paper.
You guys hear Andy?
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Cindy.
If it's more of a support role, would it make sense to try to have paras be providing that support and then using our licensed teachers to do more of assistance with the other licensed teachers as far as recording or doing lesson plans or things? And then I also want to know what increased role could our IT department do?
We could.
It's tough to say that. I'll say this from you bring up the para aspect. I don't know if they have the skill set to accommodate the needs of our families that are remote learning. You know, I don't know if they can provide the instruction like our licensed teachers can.
And I think the other part.
I understand that, but it sounded like they weren't necessarily
doing the teaching.
It sounded like it was support calls on getting the teacher connected with the student.
The challenge there is it's no different. Our pairs are assigned to students and assignments, assigned to kids all day long as well. So, the challenge that we're running into is we're trying to do two different schedules. We're stretching people thin. So that's the reason for the ask. And our teachers that are on the remote learning part are doing some of that, but there's 83 kids, 95 in the high school with 7 different subjects. It's pretty hard for 2 people to be able to be the experts on and be able to do that. Whereas if we have the classroom teachers some more time, it's going to be easier for them to. Maybe not easy isn't the right word, but it's going to be better for them to be able to go, hey, I know exactly, I know what the challenge is, I know what we're going to do it. They're not having to go back to a classroom teacher and say, hey, this is the challenge. What can we do here? So,
and I'd say 2%.
I've just heard a lot of feedback that a lot of the issues are with the videoing themselves or the what would be considered the IT platform. And so I just want to make sure that our teachers are not having to be spending their time doing IT troubleshooting, right? And instead they should be focusing on teaching. So I'm just kind of curious how much of this time is being spent really on IT matters when it's more of a teaching. They should be spending their time on teaching.
And we did have a little bit of challenge with Screencast-O-Matic it was called, but the part of the Canvas software that allowed us to live stream. We did have to make some changes to that. I know there was a little bit of a challenge there initially. I haven't heard, other than that, I haven't heard a lot of IT challenges. We had some things where we had a teacher presenting live stream, and then all the kids in the class were also on that live stream, so we're trying to send out the video or the live stream video, send it out of the building, but then we're bringing it back 25 times, which was bogging down a remote access point. Once we got that, and once we figured that out, or once our tech people and the teacher figured that out, I think that's been resolved. My understanding, visiting with our IT people today, if we're just broadcasting, we should be able to have all our teachers broadcasting or live streaming out at the same time and not have issues with bandwidth or with any of that. But where we run into issues is if we're sending it out and we bring it back in a classroom or 2 classrooms full of kids, that's creating a problem. And that's not what we're doing. There has been some challenges with teachers that weren't familiar with Canvas. Even though we did have lots of training this spring, or this summer, there's a lot to that program. So I do believe every week our teachers are gonna get a little bit better, a little bit smoother with it. But regardless, it's a time consuming process, regardless of how you go about it.
So, can I ask you? Go ahead, Joe.
A couple observations, Dan. One, I kind of agree with Andy's assessment of using paras for the purpose of teaching. teaching. And if there's follow-up things to Cindy's point about making sure the connections are, if we're able to utilize them just to keep the communication line open, but not for the teaching purpose, maybe there's some benefit in that. Secondly, are we logging? Is there a log being done right now on the part of teachers and students for the principals to reflect how much time is being made? Because what we're hearing right now, 2 weeks into the school year, ought to concern everybody.
Yes, there's
we got kids checking out or not being able to connect, and this is real early in the game, unless our great leader at the top of the state makes a decision to change this whole dynamic quickly. We've got that should concern all of us and the parents of these students who are trying to learn.
Well, and that's part of the urgency with, I started some chats last week with a couple of people, and that's part of the urgency with wanting to look at it if changing up our model a little bit is an option. But yes, I know the teachers involved in remote learning are doing logs. I know I'm seeing the ones in the high school. We talked today. I know Andy Docken had shared that Angie's doing the same thing. Our teachers that are in our meeting with some of the teachers this morning, we shared that our teachers are, and I know our principals have asked our teachers that anytime you make a contact, keep a log of that, because there are some kids that don't want to connect, and we want to have logs showing that, hey, these are times we tried to connect, or we reached out, or we did make contact. So we want to do that too. So down the road, if somebody comes back and says, hey, we never had a contact, we can show that here's times we did or we attempted. So there's a whole bunch of moving parts involved with this, but yeah, our teachers are supposed to be logging the their contacts or contact attempts.
I got a question, Dan.
Yep.
So I know the times that were given to us about in the modifying of the day for the elementary school and the high school. Contractual, how much more time would it give a teacher at the end of the day then?
It would be about
40 minutes.
45
minutes.
Yeah, give or take a minute or two. So it'd be 40 minutes. It would still, would count as part of their contracted time, because the expectation would be is teachers would use that time to be reaching out and connecting with their remote learners, or preparing materials for remote learners, or preparing materials for the entire class, with in mind that being geared for the fact that we're going to have some kids sitting in front of me and some kids sitting 40 miles away behind a computer. So there's a lot of things that our teachers, our staff, our kids could use right now. One of them is time, and that's, or maybe one of the things we can address. Some of the other things I can't, but if we can free up and provide some time, I think that would be a benefit.
Dan, my fear, based on that question too that Jeremy asked, is that this becomes more of a hypothetical than something that is measured. And if we've got a list of those kids who are learning in that manner, and we've got documentation of how much time they're logged in with the teacher, how much is it going to go up? And what do we see? I mean, I don't have any way to see it. I don't need to see any confidential information, but I'd sure like to see what a log looks like in terms of preparation and identification of what a student is being told, or the expectations put forth in a log. That we got to measure it. We have to measure it based on what it is now, that if we give them 40 additional minutes, how much more impact are we going to have on teaching kids?
And I don't have a good data point to share with you at this. We're at this level now, and if we get the added 40 minutes, we're going to be able to jump to this level. Right now, we have teachers that are in the building until 9 o'clock at night, and we had some of that in the past, but there's more teachers doing that. We have teachers that are here, when I roll in the mornings. Some mornings I'm not rolling in as early as I was for a while, but when I'm rolling at 6:30 or so, there's teachers in the lot there are teachers in the building already. So I know we have teachers that are putting in a lot of time, and teachers do anyway. I don't want to overplay
Sure.
that, but the 2 weeks in, the stress and the challenges and the concerns I'm hearing from teachers about how they're spending half or more of their weekends, or they're up until 10 o'clock at night doing stuff, and this is coming from teachers who've been doing this a long time. It's unfortunately that's fairly common to have those types of days and nights when it's your first year or two, but it's I'm hearing it across the board that we're the time it takes to do both in person and remote learning, and pretty much to a T, people feel that our remote learning, their 3 remote learning people are doing what they can to help out and alleviate that. And I think it's safe to say those 3 people are probably doing more than half their day, half days that we had agreed to already. With the thoughts that once we get rolling, maybe that'll change, or maybe it'll back off. But right now, it's really the planning and the creation and the follow up with kids that maybe tell our remote learning teachers that I just don't get this. I need somebody that I need another explanation, or I need to visit more with the classroom teacher on it. And that's where I think the plan is what I like.
How possible is it for you to make some type of an assessment that you can report back to us on those connection times now, the login time, so to speak, and make a plan for how we, with the approval of this, directly impact that situation? Because if it's not going to change it, then it makes no sense. I mean, let's face it, everybody understands the difficulty of this situation. Make no mistake. But it is not going to be the same as a face-to-face normal situation in our schools. We shouldn't expect anything other than more time and effort and work as a result of the complexity of what we've been given. But the important thing is to be able to help our staff be as effective as possible, and that's why we got to have some kind of a measure.
Question for Andy.
Mm-hmm.
With the elementary, those 54 kids, any grade heavier than the others, or?
4th grade's got a healthy crew, but it's spread out across the board. I think we have less in our younger grade levels, but it's pretty spread out.
Is it something where we could combine? Is there enough where you combine?
I think that's
and then have one teacher just do all this?
I think that's part of the problem, is that it is so spread out. Like I'll say that our specialists are almost like secondary teachers, where they have, they're prepping 6 different classes, right? And so to me, that is part of the challenge, because we have talked about that briefly, Dan and Paul and I. But overall, I think it would be a challenge. If we did have a concentration of a bigger group, other schools that we've talked to have talked about that 1 grade level teacher might just be the remote person. But I don't think that we have a healthy enough concentration to do that. If our numbers increase, okay. We have had a few kids coming back at the elementary level, which we'd like them all to come back, but
Okay. I just wondered.
It's a challenge for sure.
So
Is this recommendation for the rest of the school year, or just through December, or what was the recommendation?
Well, I guess my recommendation was going to be for as long as whenever we're in-person learning to go with this schedule. It is going to be an adjustment. If the board agrees to change the plan to this, it will be an adjustment for families. So I don't think we want to be going back and forth, or say this will be through first quarter and then we'll reevaluate, or then we might change. We could make to Joe's point, maybe it is a semester, so it'd be roughly January 20th would be halfway. If we're in person learning, then yet we should all high five virtually, and then, and reevaluate them. But I don't know that we want to say, we're going to do it for a shorter period of time and then maybe change, because it is going to put families are going to have to make some adjustments. Kids are going to be coming home 35, 40 minutes earlier, and I don't think we want to be jumping back and forth too much along the way.
So what would happen if you went back to how the scheduling was before, where there was the IS at the end of the day? Is there something that we could do to be able to keep the kids there, but to still afford that extra time for the teachers that need help?
Well, and the challenge there is the teachers would still have a classroom full of kids, that they'd be, having in a study hall or having in a homeroom, or would be coming, with the way that worked in the past is if, I had a problem or I needed to make up a test in science class, I could go check out, I could meet, let the science teacher know, get a pass from the science teacher, the 8th hour, I'm going to come and do that test. So that time, I would anticipate that time would be still well utilized, but it would be used more for, or it'd be still being used for kids that are here every day. I don't know that would necessarily free up added time. What we do lose by doing, if we do leave at 2:40, is kids doing makeup or needing that extra help in the school day. Would have to make sure they get that during their class time when they're with the teacher, or make arrangements outside of that during the teacher's prep or whatever, like basically did back in the old days, to make those connections. So
And I just have one last question. Yeah. Does it make more sense to have that time be at the end of the day, or would it be more helpful for families to have a later start in the morning?
We talked about that too this afternoon. I don't know if it's easier for families to arrange something or make a change at the end of the day, or if we start 40 minutes late in the morning, if that's better. I do know when we talked about not opening the buildings, or when we didn't open the buildings as early, I had a number of parents contact say, hey, I got to be to work at 7:30, and if your buildings aren't open until 7:30, what am I going to do? I got conflicts there. So that's why we backed it up a little bit in the high school and a few minutes earlier in the elementary to try and accommodate some of those things. So, but I don't know. Andy, Paul, and I did talk about that this afternoon, and as a possibility. I'm not against that, I guess. I was, what we had figured out for schedule and time wise was to use it at the end of the day. But
for what it's worth, the end of the day makes more sense to me, because everybody has their traditional start time for their work, and they've already made arrangements for the afternoon, because most people's work day lasts longer than school day. So they've already made arrangements for in between time in the afternoon. To just add a in between time in the afternoon sounds a little more attractive as a parent than having to mess around with my start of work day as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about like an option where it would be maybe 4 days of school, and then like on Fridays we would be off, or something to that sort, or do you think that it needs to happen every day?
I like your thinking.
Well, I don't know about that, John, and this is a question, but if they're teaching only 4 days a week instead of 5, and still having to facilitate the same instruction that they're struggling with now, I don't know how going to a 4-day week is going to benefit education.
Well, the schools are doing 4-day week, turn the 5th day into a remote learning day for everybody. So I don't know if that would, we don't know until we try, I guess, but I don't know that would free up or allow more time for teachers. Thought was as long as we can, I'd like to get our kids in the building every day until numbers, or until we decide to do some reason otherwise.
Sure.
So that's kind of my thinking. I wasn't a fan of the remote learning 1 day a week, because I feel like in too many cases, that's gonna be a lost day, even if we do try to make a remote learning day, especially, I guess, if it's a Friday. I know some schools have done Friday, other schools have used Wednesday, take the day in the middle of the week to try and avoid, that becoming a 3-day weekend every week, so. This way, by being in school every day, we're still having contact with 1,000 of our kids every day, and whatever the number is with our remote learners out, but we're still having that daily contact with them, and I think that's one of the things our teachers really wanted, our staff really wanted, and I think it's a big benefit to have that every day.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and to approve the revised school day in accordance with administration's recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second that.
Yes.
Who seconded?
John, was that you?
Yes.
Okay. That's a question for Andy.
Yep.
What are the elementary kids gonna miss out on? Being 40 minutes or 45 minutes shorter day.
Yeah, so we would cut our class periods. The biggest impact is going to be specialists. So they're art, music, science, PE, and media. That's going to be a few minutes shorter in each of those classes. So that's the quickest impact that they're going to lose out on. But other than that, we're self-contained. So it's other than that, that's the biggest loss if we do the modified schedule.
Could you repeat that, please, for us, Dan?
So, okay, hold on a second. So, like, if Brenda's, she gets a kid for 50 minutes a day, is that what it is? Or?
Yeah, roughly.
And then she'll get 45 instead of that? Or
right,
something?
Roughly.
Okay. Question, Dan, I heard the question in Andy's response, and correct me if I misstated, but some of the time will come from specialists, and then it'll be classroom time in the self-contained classrooms. Teachers will have to adjust their day accordingly, knowing they have a few less minutes.
Well, it really works out to 5 minutes a period.
Yeah.
So it directly impacts the specialist schedule is who it impacts. In this being we're self-contained in our other classrooms.
Could you guys hear that?
Not completely.
Okay,
So if we take 5 minutes off of each period, similar to the high school when they did the revised schedule, it's 5 minutes really off of specialist times. It's 5 minutes off each period. So Dennis asked where the kids are directly affected in the elementary. It's specialist times.
The hard part, I think, in all of this is I think it's probably going to be an easier adjustment for the high school kids because they're in the past have had that plan done at the end of the day. I think the real challenge is going to be with Rippleside, and it's a little bit hard to swallow because it's probably less than 10% of the kids, but the schedule is going to impact
90.
the other 90%.
That's what I said earlier. We're doing all this for 10%. 90% are affected.
Yeah, I have a concern about that. And I also, unless and until we have some way to measure this, I'm not comfortable saying yes. We have to be able to measure this.
And I'm gonna just, if you guys don't mind, have one comment, like in regards to that. Like if we're not taking care of our teachers, their mental health, they're going to be out for us. We're not going to be in person learning anyways. That's my one fear of not at least looking at some alternative schedule.
Can you repeat that, Andy?
Yep. So I just with the added work that our staff in general is being asked to do, and the limited time during the day. I can see the mental stresses that our instructional staff is having already, and if we don't entertain the idea of an alternative schedule, I think that we're going to have teacher, whether it's mental health issues, sick, whatever it is, they're going to get run down, and they're not going to be the best for our kids anyways, and so we won't necessarily be able to have our kids in person if we have a shortage of staff. So that's my biggest fear in not at least entertaining the idea of a possible schedule change.
My only comment is I don't know that we should wait for middle of January. When is the first semester done? Or?
First semester.
November 6th.
First quarter's done like November 6th in the high school. I'm not sure how that correlates with the marking period in the elementary, but half.
We're just quarters. Yeah, I mean it's quarters.
Same.
And then semester, the half year would be January 20th. Somewhere roughly around.
Right. I think the board should look at it each semester, personally. But
so review
it's up to
this.
the board.
So you're saying review it for January again?
No, I'm saying you review it in
Quarter.
November.
Okay, so quarterly.
Right.
Yeah, quarter or trimester, Paul Eds.
We're quarters here.
Okay, so November 6th is the end of the first quarter.
November 6th, and then again, November 6th, and then we should look at probably again in January.
Right.
Right.
Right. How everybody's thoughts or your motion on that, Cindy?
I just have a thought, Cindy. You're not
That's why I left my motion open in accordance with administration recommendation to try to be flexible that way.
Yeah. My thought is in this whole discussion we haven't talked about kids. We're talking about teachers, but we're not talking about the outcome on kids, and that's the reason that I believe we have to figure out a way to measure this change.
And Joe, I completely agree with you as far as, the kids, in the elementary, it's 90% of our kids that we are affecting. I guess I would challenge my staff to come up with some type of educational opportunities or outcomes, even though they may not be in the building. They're losing that face-to-face time, but educationally they're not going to. They could have an hour or some type of a remote learning task, just like our other remote learners, because I think down the road, we're going to be in a hybrid, we're going to be in a remote learning situation for everybody. Everybody needs to get used to it. So I think it would be good preparation for our kids at all levels to also have that. They're not just losing out on 40 minutes or 45 minutes of educational time. They're losing out on the face-to-face aspect of that, but they're not losing out strictly on the 50 minutes of education time.
I'm going to add one more thing. I think it's very important for the equity in education. And those kids that are remote learners have every right to their teachers too, and they need their teachers. And the teachers need the time to get in and work with those kids. And the equity issue is there. My biggest fear as a high school principal is 2 years down the road, or what are we going to see as far as graduation rates? I'm worried about that. I'm worried about the kids that are on remote learning and they're falling through the cracks. We need to close those cracks up, and we need to be able to take and work with those kids as much as we possibly can to make sure that their education is as sound as everybody else's. And the only way we can do that right now is we got to make sure that our teachers have the time to do the job and cover those kids.
I would agree with that, Mr. Corrales. The concern that I have, however, is that we're basically taking up all of the teachers. It's going to impact all of the teachers and all of the students, and I'm not sure if that's the correct approach or if we need to look at having adequate staff. I mean, if we're going to be, does it make more sense to be cutting all of the students, or does it make more sense to be hiring somebody that can help administer this education to those kids, like I think Mr. Ryan or someone had mentioned earlier, doing like a multi-age function or something like that. Also, if you're going to be cutting all of the specialists, then would it make sense to be reallocating the teachers, because now you're going to be cutting 4 specialist teachers, right? And then all of the education that goes along for those other 90% of the students, and not having that, what will their time be spent doing? And so I'm not opposed to going forward and figuring out and providing the best education possible for the distance learning students. I think we have an obligation to do that, and I think we want to do that. I'm just not convinced that this staffing model is the correct way to deliver that.
And I'll say that, Cindy, I'm going to say that we're not cutting the specialists. They still have 6 preps or all the grade levels to prep for as usual. It's a couple minutes off of each hour in the elementary, so they're still planning and you know, getting their instruction, because they have remote learners too. You know, Brenda's sitting right next to me, but she's got 53 remote learners right now. So she needs time to prep for those 53 remote learners, because, you know, there isn't another science teacher in the elementary right now. I mean, she's alone.
But if they're, I mean, in science, you do some things that those remote learners are not going to be able to do, right?
Do I answer?
I'm asking Brenda.
So I'm videotaping my lessons.
Right, but they might not have the material
Correct.
for them to do the same experiment.
Correct. They're watching my experiment that I'm doing in class.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. That's one of the disadvantages of remote learning, that it is what it is. You can't change that. Okay.
No, and I don't think we're going to ever see any less of it either. I think this is forever changed to some degree, how kids are going to learn.
I agree, Joel. This is probably not going to go away soon. The other thing is that, and I'll add one more thing. A math teacher for some of these kids is very critical. That math teacher works with those kids, and whether it's through Zoom or Google Meets or anything in that line, they do need to communicate and get to know their teachers well too. That personal connection is a pretty major part.
Sure it is. It's what unfortunately we're missing as a result of all this.
Yep.
Okay.
And to Cindy's point, on a couple things, I mean, do we need to look at adding some staff to assist those teachers in those key roles? Is that what's going to be a better use of resources? Because Dennis made a valid point. When we're making a decision that affects an entire district for 10% of the students. Not that we don't care about 10% of the students, but is there a more effective way to go at and connect with them?
That's why I think we should relook this after the first quarter. Not wait till in January.
And I think if there's any way to measure, there has to be an expectation. We need to start measuring right now what's transpiring and how this goes through this first quarter, and we can make some assessments based on data.
And Joe, the expectation is that they would be doing a log of some sort. That was per our discussion with the teacher EMA today. And at an admin level, you're absolutely right. They're going to be expected to do contact logs, but it's so much more than just communication with our remote learners, and I don't want that to get lost either. It's actually planning for the instruction. I mean, they've doubled their workload and have the same amount of work time. You know, yes, it's only 53 kids, but they're planning the lesson. They have to basically do their lessons twice in a day, regardless if they have 2 kids remote learning or 1,000 kids remote learning. That doesn't really matter. The number doesn't really matter, because the instructional planning is the same regardless of the number of kids.
So this isn't directed at you, Andy.
Yep.
So what's the governor and the Minnesota Department of Education have to say about this scenario that we're now faced with? What's their fix?
I think honestly, you know, that we're given a hand, we're dealt the hand that we have, and we have it's up to the local districts to figure it out.
Okay.
So Andy, I have a question. So
you're right.
If there's let's say there's 4 teachers per grade, and you're looking at distance learners in 4th grade, for instance, are all 4 of those teachers trying to do their own remote learning, or have you basically assigned all of the remote learners for each grade to one of the 4 main teachers.
No, so what we did, and this was kind of an admin team decision, we wanted each individual teacher to keep their remote learners that are in their classroom for the simple fact that if those kids come back, they have a seat in a classroom. And so we want those kids to still be a part of a classroom or part of one homeroom for that sense of community, and they know that it's always welcome instead of if we have, let's say 4th grade has 20 remote learners and we have one teacher doing that, well then if they re-enroll, which in the elementary in the last week I've had 7 kids come back, now we got to place them in a classroom, and it's a little bit of a different situation. We just felt like it was a more welcoming atmosphere or environment if we have them assigned to a room, and each teacher is responsible for remote learning.
In an effort to move on here a little bit, Cindy, your motion was broad and supportive of the admin. I'm right with you on that. But listening here, Denny and Joe in particular have been talking about logging it, measuring it, the accountability side, and readdressing it through a board discussion after the end of the first quarter. I guess I would like to see some wording in our motion that would maybe include those couple of focuses.
Cindy?
We'll call it
I'm okay with
amendment to the motion.
You're okay with that?
I'm okay with making that addition to the motion.
Okay, got that, Mary?
So we have with administration recommendation.
And to be reviewed after the first quarter.
Yep.
Okay, any more discussion?
Can I add? It seems like we're going this way, I would anticipate that, I don't know why I'm doing that again. Anticipate that we try to start maybe a Monday, October 5th. That'd be 2 weeks from today. That would give us time to get the message out to all our families, all our kids' parents that we're making the change. And if we did that, then we'd have 2 weeks before the October board meeting. The November board meeting isn't until the 16th of November, which would be about 2 weeks after into the second quarter. Is the November board meeting good enough time to have that discussion again?
So why don't we have a work session on it?
Work session on it, like
We might have one planned already.
Or 2, and we can include it in as many as is needed to be able to more clearly understand the impact of this.
Right.
Mary's looking to see when the work session's scheduled.
I'm looking too. I might not have them all on my calendar. Mary didn't invite me.
She did.
I believe the schedule that you're setting up for the students and families needs to continue at least to the semester break, but we need to review this discussion and the motion that we've made, the contents of our motion. As you guys mentioned a couple of times between now and November.
Dan, are you going to explain it to
Second.
to everybody?
November
That it's
2nd?
not because of numbers?
And then the other
Because
one
that's health
would be,
issue. They're all going to say, oh, we got too high a numbers.
the 9th.
And they're going to go that way. But you'll explain it that it's the workload.
Yes.
It's doubled
Yep.
on their staff, so we got to do this.
Right. Yeah, next.
Because I don't want it to be, oh, we got 30 COVID cases and all, that's why you got to cut back.
And
People get goofy on that stuff.
Right, it just, like I said, districts went into it, I don't know, if half districts or whatever percentage went into it similar to the way we did. And some districts from the get-go planned, I looked at a number of districts, but districts from the get-go went into it planning extra time for teachers to hit remote learners. They're looking smarter than we are right now, I guess, because we're seeing that we need that time. So if John's point, everybody heard that, was to go to this model until semester, but we would look at it at quarter break to look at data and look at where we're at. Is that, or are you saying you want to possibly change before the semester break?
I think the issue for me is just that I don't think it's an issue whatsoever at the high school. I think people will be able to figure that out because those kids oftentimes don't need daycare after school. The issue for me is just trying to find a solution that makes sense for Rippleside, and in particular for giving families advance notice of how their schedule is going to be. It's not as easy to adjust their schedules. So I'm not sure if it makes sense to just move forward with the high school and try to figure that out, or if it makes sense to go through Christmas break for Rippleside to give families an opportunity to get schedule in order. I just think that there needs to be some more creative problem solving at the Rippleside level.
Not as a challenge, Cindy, but if we happen to go back to distance learning, remote learning across the board, and somebody makes that decision, it happens at the stroke of whatever, and we all have to scramble. So I think a couple of weeks that Dan has suggested is maybe should be looked upon as a doable situation.
Okay, so we got, what's your motion? Let's table that motion. You guys start over? What do you want to do? Because John seconded it something different than he said the first time, so.
You're on mute, Cindy. You're on mute.
I can hear that.
I'm happy to withdraw my motion and we can start over.
Okay. John?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, the motion and the second have been withdrawn. Cindy, do you want to make a different motion?
No, I don't.
You don't. John?
Cindy said it well the first time. I'm good with the motion. Just reread what we have and see if it's something we can again make a motion.
Okay, listen to Mary.
Okay. Make a motion with administration recommendation to be reviewed after the first quarter.
It just depends on where, if you want to keep it, do we want to keep it till Christmas or January when they come back from school, or?
As far as I'm concerned, I believe we should, we can't keep changing the schedule every day if we can avoid it. So in turn, I think we need to make the commitment for the first semester, but yet I want to see it reviewed with log time, something that the data that our admin can compile for us. I think we need to look at it periodically between now and then.
Okay, John made a motion that we continue till the end of the semester, but I think we're going to review it after the first quarter. Is that right?
That'll work.
Okay. We have a second.
I'll second.
Noel seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Do we want a board work session?
Well, not if we're going to just do it. We can do that here then.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Okay, next on the list we have to approve Laura Parkins, Community Education Director's contract.
Okay, change here is, I believe it was on the consent agenda, we had a resignation in as Kids Club, the Kids Club Director position, who worked under Laura. So we're going to, what I'm proposing is adding 6 hours a week to Laura's contract. She will take on the coordinator role for Kids Club, responsible for sign up and getting kids enrolled and hiring or lining up staff to do that. And then we won't replace the Kids Club coordinator position with a separate person. On that person also, there was it was total 35 hours, 9 hours as coordinator, 25 hours of that was spent. No, I take that back, 24 hours and 15 hours of it was spent as Kids Club teacher or person, we'll be able to hire that back with somebody at a lower rate. So in the end, this should save us a little bit of money, and it just increases Laura's contract from, should be 0.6, still as community ed director, and 0.15 as kids club coordinator, and we'll prorate that starting October 1 for the year. We won't fill the resignation.
I'll make a motion to approve that, and then also I just want to comment that I want to give kudos to Bobby Barusa. She always did a very nice job with both of those programs. I know that there's a lot of logistics involved, and I know that Laura does a good job too, and we'll be able to pick up, but I do want to thank Bobby for her service.
Second. We have a motion, is there a second?
Jeremy, was that you?
Yeah. Jeremy, okay. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next one, temporarily increase the security entry AD secretary position to full-time for the 2021 school year.
And this was one of the things I threw at you today. If you didn't get a chance to read it, I apologize for that. But at the end of the summer, with the new secure entry, and the fact that our high school office is at the other end of the building from the district office, some of the logistics of being able to cover that door, that area with current office staff wasn't going to be feasible. My thoughts were we'd split the afternoons with Jeannie Ince, who's taking on our food service program, and maybe some time from the high school office staff, and with all the other things going on with Jeannie learning the food service, our plan with Jeannie with her starting last spring was in the receptionist role, she'd have the spring to work with Karen Holm to learn the nuances of the federal food program and everything else. Really, she's learning on the fly, and fortunately, I think Heather's had a great deal of experience working with that program to help train her in, and it's just been more, in the high school office, helping track and record and keep track of kids who are coming and going due to various medical ailments, and helping keep track of those lists. It's all taking more time. So I'm asking that for this year, we have a full-time secure entry AD secretary. Next year, the plan would be that the high school office, we get our remodeling done, and everything falls on timelines. Next year, the high school office will be located in the remodeled area of the district office, and the two offices will be together, and maybe it'll work out better to shift office staff so it wouldn't have to be full-time, and hopefully we're beyond the added work of the COVID cluster we're in, the COVID-19 that we're in, and we'll be able to back off of that. But being we're separated, and the other thing, that other curveball that's in there is Alex is teaching one Phi Ed class, part of our cuts, so he's out of the office for an hour, 50 minutes, 55 minutes a day, every day with that class. So I'm asking that we extend that position. I did have Dawn temporarily work every day for September just to see if things settle down, and it just, things really aren't settling down enough to where we can start shifting other staff. So I'm asking that we make that all-day position for this school year.
Didn't we discuss and think that potentially might happen anyway?
Yeah, we did.
No, COVID or non-COVID, we had concern about how we were going to cover that in a full day shift. We were going to do it.
Yeah, you're right. We did have those discussions, and I probably naively thought we could probably cover it with current staff, and it's just not going to work at this point. But it was discussed when we looked at this plan of moving the secure entry down there and having the AD's office move down there a year prior to the rest of the office following. So thank you, Jeremy, for remembering that.
What hours of the day are you wanting to cover that wouldn't ideally be covered now?
Initially, my thought was that we'd have Dawn in the morning to take help with the morning rush and things that need to be scheduled in the morning, and she'd go until noon, and then after lunch, we could have, once Jeannie was done with the with the lunch hour, she could work updating reports and doing that from that desk. And at some point, we might be able to do that. Jeannie's also taken on entering many or most of our purchase orders, and with everything, again, those numbers are, there's more of those going with things we have to process through, and we've thrown, everything's brand new, we're not pretty much new to her this fall with the changing roles, and it's just not working for her to have any time to be able to work from that desk, so. The thought was that we'd be able to split the afternoon with a couple of different people, and the people I was thinking of using don't have the time to move them down there.
How much additional cost are we looking at for the district?
I don't have that number in front of me.
Heather?
What if,
Maybe Heather can come up with
what
it.
if there was, I'm sorry, did I?
No, go ahead, Joe.
So that would be my question, is where's the money coming from? Because, obviously we're spending this above our budget, which we're already spending more than we make. So that would be my question.
Dan, my other question is this. What if technology could offset this on a one-time basis? Have we looked at that?
Yeah, I guess I'd be open to it. I don't know what.
If you were willing to table this, I may have a solution, but I'm certainly not prepared to explain it to you or the board at this point in time. And I don't know if it's a solution, but there are technological means and methods to do what we're trying to do there with regard to an entry and visitor management.
Even if we did do that, Mr. Ryan, it would still take a little bit of time to implement. So what if we approved it through the first semester?
I couldn't agree more. That would work, but I would still.
Heather's got it.
Point. My question is we do need to know what the cost is going to be.
I think Heather's got a question or an answer to your question, Joe.
So the cost would be about $11,000, and one option to pay for it would be to use some of our Safe Schools money for it. That would be eligible.
You hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
So that would be 11,000. Assuming we
for the
did
year.
this, I like Cindy's idea. Let's review it at the end of the first quarter, but it's going to be going forward 11,000 plus increases each and every year.
11,000 if we did for the year.
As an added cost, correct?
It'd be about 11,000 additional for the year, and we could do that.
All right.
We could use Safe Schools money for that as a security entry.
Is that Safe Schools money available? We know it's available this year. Or do we know it's available a year from now? Or 2 years from now?
It's part of the levy that we get every year, unless they change legislation.
According to legislation,
Okay.
it's a levy. Okay, you heard that? Sorry.
Yep, I did hear. Thank you, Dan. I will. I'll touch base with you tomorrow.
Yep.
And just get you in the loop on what might be an option to help us.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So was that a motion, Cindy, or? What?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve that position temporarily through the end of the year.
End of the semester, right?
Semester or year?
End of the 2020 calendar year.
Okay.
Okay. There a second?
Can I? Why we wouldn't do that through the semester? If there is a cost savings to be had, I don't know.
I think it's pretty close, isn't it?
Semester's probably about January 20th, usually third week in January, someplace in there.
Oh, you're talking.
Yeah,
about
that's fine.
This calendar year, Joe, not the school year.
Calendar year, and I thought you were talking about the school year. My bad.
Okay, so now which do we want?
What do you want?
Why don't we make it subject to the semester, and if there's some value in another solution, we don't have to commit to that period of time.
Okay.
And there'll be some savings, or there won't.
So the end of first semester would be good.
Okay, end of first semester.
And that was the second, Joe?
Joe did.
Second.
Okay,
Jeremy seconded it. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
We're already to board member reports. Committee of personnel. I wasn't there. August 26th. I read them.
Oh, we did, at that meeting, we did talk about, this position, we talked about fall coaches and so on. And that's, Alex shared with us the training schedule for volleyball and football, which has all changed as of today, which we'll talk about a little bit. We also talked about the remote learning coordinators and so on, so, that's where we're at.
Okay. Finance and facilities, September 3rd.
In old business, high school kitchen panels done now?
Yep.
For sure. Carpet for 6th grade was done, there's some leaching or bleaching through they're gonna fix, but.
Which is fixed?
The tennis courts are gonna buy this year, cause we're looking at, it's gonna have to be a major, almost a major redo. iPads, do we get them yet?
Today
Today
the
we did get
iPads
them.
showed up. The tech people were busy setting them up, and hopefully we'll be giving them out
Thursday, Friday.
Thursday, Friday, so.
Security entry is done here, please.
Yep.
Good.
Maintenance lights in the auditorium are fixed now, or?
Yep, that was fixed.
Special assignment, or that's what we're talking about, on our distant learning. Climate makers, air handling units. I kinda missed that one.
Well, and what we're doing, climate makers, and part of our COVID funds is we're redoing some vents and fans. One, it's to be updated, and they're I would say beyond repair, 'cause we're still using them, but if the vent system's on high, which is where we have it running now, periodically every few days, things start squealing and squeaking, so the custodians have to go up and do some oiling to keep everything working, so it's not creating distractions or being loud. So we're gonna be looking at changing those out, and we've been working at budgeting into some of our CRF COVID relief funds that are available until the 30th of December. So there will be a cost there, but it'll be covered through our COVID relief, because that's the reason we're trying to up our circulation, ventilation in our classrooms in our building at the high school. Sorry, Kevin, I spilled it from you.
Okay. Any questions? Now we'll move on to superintendent's report.
You just love hearing from me. Enrollment, our numbers, we're down 33 kids from last year. That's a little bit, I don't want to say deceiving, because that's kind of what we're trending. We're about 31 down, I think, in May, but that includes the fact we have about 25 to 30 more homeschoolers right now than we did last year. Had we not had, I doubt that our homeschool numbers would have jumped if we weren't in the middle of the pandemic and families choosing to teach kids as in a homeschool model. And the other part of that is there are about 25 of our kids that were homeschooled last year that have not submitted paperwork yet. They have until the end of September to submit paperwork, and the paperwork then has to be, Mary has forms to complete, to process to complete, and approve or get sent to the MDE by October 15th. So right now we're down about 33 kids, and we're figuring many of those current numbers are basically new homeschool kids from last year, which I can say they probably wouldn't be, but I don't know that for sure. Had we not been in the model.
I would assume most of the schools around have that same problem.
Yeah.
A few more homeschooling going on because of this.
Yep. Yep. Some schools have had much higher numbers that I've heard of. You hear about maybe the big jumps, but yeah, it's.
Was that actual enrollment or was that estimated enrollment?
That would be our actual enrollment as of today, right? You were working.
Yeah, but I mean from last year. It's
Right
not
now-
what we expected, budgeted for. Less kid, I mean.
We were budgeting for about 35 less kids, I think, last year, right?
For this year?
Yeah, for this year.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're right in that
Right in there.
ballpark.
Okay.
Again, without the pandemic, and we can say that about a lot of things, I don't think our numbers would be down that much because we have a larger number doing homeschool that probably wouldn't have before. So, all right.
Good.
Next.
Levy marketing update.
So I have met, we had 2 different meetings with WSN since we met. They're gonna be on site Thursday to do some videos and pictures of our technology, do some stuff with our bus garage, just to get in their marketing and information they're gonna help us share about what our needs are and what we're doing. Couple of things that we've already done or I've worked with them on. There should be a letter to the editor of both the Age and the Hopper this week. We've had that put out on our website as well as on Facebook and social media. So that's again coming from me through WSN or from it, working with WSN. I've been on radio a couple of times. I was out there this morning talking about everything in general, but I talked about the levy information. I've also recorded a public service message with KKIN that I've worked with WSN to create. We are planning a couple of community meetings. Depending on where everything goes, community meetings are, in person are going to be a little more difficult, but I think for sure we're going to try to do a in-person one at the auditorium. Again, we're working on those, and the details will change or come out when we get them. Again, it depends on numbers and everything else going on. I mentioned the video photo shoot day with WSN on Thursday. We're going to have a meeting with them then Thursday afternoon, probably about 3:30. I think that'll be a hangout, a virtual meeting. I'm going to invite staff just across the board, and I have them, they can weigh in, watch, ask questions. Our challenge is just getting the message out, it's sharing what we're doing and what the costs are going to be. And if the board has any suggestions or has an idea on a role they can play or you can play, I know we've talked Kevin into delivering or dropping off some paperwork which show the loan impact, the levy impact and what it's going to cost and so on. Mary's been running around into different directions, dropping things off at. What's that?
I said Mary's been running the deer.
Yeah, she's been running into deer. She didn't do that while she was delivering paperwork for the levy, but she's been visiting different businesses and making stops, getting the information out as well. So if the board is willing to jump in and do some of that or be a part of that, anything we do to get the message out that this is what we're asking for. We got to be careful, obviously, on school time. We're not saying vote yes or no, but this is just the logistics of what we're asking. So we'll be pretty much daily contact or every couple of days with WSN talking about our next steps and our next role. So any questions on the levy?
I don't have any questions on the levy, but I wonder if it makes sense for us to continue to move forward with the long-term strategic plan too and kind of go side by side. I wonder if that would make sense to continue working on that right away rather than table it until after November. I just wonder if the public would appreciate that we're continuing to work on the long-term plan.
Yeah,
if you're going to figure out who you're going to do it with.
Well, the long-term plan is going to change after November, depending on which way the vote goes.
Yeah, I was thinking after we know in November. We talked about creating time for teachers. I'm not quite sure where in anybody's schedule we could jump into a long-term facilities plan right now, but I think with the, hopefully with momentum or we'll know where we're at after November 3rd to know, because that's going to impact what we're going to do, and if it doesn't pass, what we're going to do in the spring as far as making reductions and what our programming is going to be. So not against that, I'm just a little leery about saying we're going to try and get something rolling prior to November 3rd.
Okay, answer your question, Cindy? Okay.
A couple things I didn't have on there. You know, we had a request for open lunch period from a parent on behalf of their students. I checked with 7 different area schools, and none of them have an open lunch. I'm not, and 2 of them that did have changed it due to concerns with COVID and kids coming and going. Not COVID, with COVID-19 kids coming and going. I guess my recommendation would be just to table that and not pursue an open lunch period at this time. Question also came up with eating outside. That does become a supervision and maintenance challenge. Our custodians and kitchen staff and already have added time and are working harder and squeezing minutes where they didn't have them before to help with the cleaning. And we're moving from one end of the first floor from the cafeteria and down to the new gym area, the commons area down there, because we have kids spread out. So there's a number of reasons why I just don't see us being able to go outside. On one side of the building we have 210, so a lot of traffic there. The other side we have a street. The high school just doesn't have a good grassy area, an area where we could really get set up for that. So I guess that's where I'm coming, the side I'm coming down on that. I don't know if there's thoughts or the board has any input to that, or if you want to chat about that. But.
Okay. Well, you've got listed school year update, but
we already hit that.
Yeah. Then we come to upcoming meeting.
I have one comment on that open lunch stand. Was that was referring to seniors, correct?
Correct.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
I do have a couple other things we can, if I can.
Yeah.
ARI is going to be here on Thursday, meeting with Paul and I and a few people from the high school custodians to start to look at plans for the cafeteria and high school office remodeling. They're kind of all there. We're just going to go through some things that were put on hold. And then I see Alex left. We should have maybe brought him in sooner. Most of you are aware the Minnesota State High School League changed its decision on volleyball and football. Both will be able to start next Monday, the 28th. Volleyball will have 10 practices and have an 11-week season where they're going to have 14 competitions. At this point, no spectators due to the be indoors. I just the way they're talking about that makes me wonder if there's going to be some changes there. Football can start on the 28th. They'll have 10 practices. Their first games will be in October 9th or 10th that weekend. Looking at a 6-game season wrapping up around November 28th. With football being outside, the fan base can be up to 250, and they said not counting the players and coaches, is my understanding. The board of directors in the high school league will be meeting October 4th, I think it is. I didn't write the date. It's October to share more specifics with what that'll look like and what their plan is. I mentioned the iPads already, and then Riverwood purchased a face mask for every student, and we got those this week, and I'm waiting for some information from Riverwood before we give them out. But thanks to Riverwood Foundation, we'll have Andy's holding one up right there. We'll have a face mask that will be given to every student K-12 that isn't costing the district anything, and it's Riverwood's covering the cost. So now I'm at the end, Danny.
Okay.
Dan?
Yes, sir.
Dan?
Yep.
Do we know how many guests we have at a typical football game the last 2 years?
I would guess we're over 250.
I mean,
I don't know.
Being a little facetious, but I imagine there was all kinds of scientific data that came with that 250 calculation.
Yeah. teachers hold, or what, I don't know if anybody here knows, but yeah, I don't know what our count is at a football game. I should. I
Any
used to count
thoughts,
tickets.
any discussion about how that's all gonna be monitored? I know it's early, we just found.
Right.
today,
I think that'll be discussed at the October 4th or whatever their full board meeting is. If I had to guess right now, I'd say it's going to come back to the district to regulate how you're going to do that. But hopefully they'll have some suggestions or have something in place for us to follow.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Upcoming meetings, Personnel Committee, September 30th. Facilities, October 1st. These are 3:45. Board work session, October 12th at 7 p.m. here. Policy Committee meeting, the 14th at 3:45. School Board meeting, October 19th, 7 p.m. here. Truth and Taxation, December 21st. I don't know what I got thrown in there for, but Community Education Advisory Council meeting, September 29th, 4 p.m. Zoom meeting. Is there anything else before we adjourn?
I got my phone went dead. Sorry, when you were talking about the students talking about the lunch uptown in the table. I just wanted to report that the last time I heard, I think that the student council was going to be talking about that and maybe working with Mr. Corrales. It sounds like there's some ongoing discussions there. So that was the last I had heard on that.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else? Motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Joe, second?
I'll second.
Hope seconded. Ain't gonna be no discussion. Everybody in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.